is Chris Clay? Well, first and foremost, I'm a radio announcer, I'm a business owner, and I am the ambassador of independent soul music for the United States, most recently elected about a year ago. And I'm a fan of great music, all kinds of music. You know, I always say that there's people that like music, and then there's connoisseurs of music. I am definitely a connoisseur of music. Where am I from? I'm originally from Louisiana. I was born and raised there. After college, I got the opportunity to move around and do radio. Took a stint with Warner Brothers Records. I did records for a long time, got the opportunity to hop around different states and, you know, see how the whole music business works at radio. And after that, I opened my own business. After Hurricane Katrina, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's where we restarted the business at, and we've been in Charlotte for the past 12 years, and it has been a great experience. And as of June 18th, 2018, I moved to New York City to take a job with Soul Cafe Radio. How did I get to New York City? It really all started with a phone call from a stranger. I was minding my own business one day, and this young man, Eric White, who's the owner of Soul Cafe Radio, which I didn't know at that time, he called me up and he complimented me on a podcast that I do every week. He said he had been listening to the podcast for the past year, and he really enjoyed the podcast, and he hung up. Well, about 2 days later, he called me back and he asked me, how would I like to move to New York City and do some radio? And I said, you can't afford me. And I wasn't trying to be an egotistical maniac. I just knew that I had a business, I have a home in the Carolinas. I didn't want to uproot that stuff. And if I was going to uproot it, then it was going to cost him a lot of money. And so he said, why don't you humble yourself, tell me what you need, and let's see if we can make these wishes happen. So I was like, that's just an email away. So it took me about 5 minutes to write an email. I sent it, about 6-7 days went by, did not hear from them. I figured I was right. They hadn't called back, so obviously they couldn't afford me. And about the 7th, 8th day, they called back and said, this time he had his partner on the phone, which is a guy named Michael Sexton. And they both said, hey man, you know, we talked about what your wishes were, and we just want to let you know that your wish has been granted. Me being the silly fool that I am, I said, all of it? And they said, yeah, all 3 items that you asked for, we're giving that to you. But we need you to be in New York City on June the 18th, 2018. So that was about 3 weeks away. And that's how this whole thing got started. So I had to scramble, put some people in place in my business so that I wouldn't have to close that. And I got on a plane and went to New York City. And that's how I get here. My job title at Soul Cafe Radio is, first, a radio announcer. Secondly, I consult them on many different things, from promotions, on music. I am not the program director. The program director is a young lady named Katie Martino. Katie is responsible for all the music that happens. I do talk to Katie about specific records, some things that she may miss, some things that she may not know about, but her job is programming. My job is, I'm a radio announcer, and I'm a consultant for the radio station. What is Soul Cafe Radio all about? Soul Cafe Radio is pretty simple. It's 100% indie soul, and now when I say soul, I'm talking about R&B, smooth jazz, and soulful gospel. It's 100% indie. You'll never hear Drake, Chris Brown, Nicki Minaj, and I love that stuff, but you'll never hear that on Soul Cafe Radio. You know, Eric and Michael built a platform because they seen a need for all this great independent music that wasn't getting exposed and didn't have a home to get exposed. You know, there's certain radio stations around the country, they'll play a record here or there, but to have a radio station that's totally dedicated to 100% indie music, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there is none in the United States. And so these guys are trailblazers in my mind. They took an opportunity where they weren't getting any support at all from major labels. So they're funding this thing 100% with their own money, and they don't get any major sponsorship from record labels. So I thought it was a great opportunity. I really believe in indie music. Over the last 10, 15 years, we've seen the indie records get better, bigger, louder, brighter, you know, just great writing. And I think that it's a great opportunity because those records didn't have a home. Now they have a home here in New York City on Soul Cafe Radio, and that is what Soul Cafe Radio is all about. I think I answered that question, but I'll answer it again. The question is, why indie music? I think because there's no home for it. You know, there are a lot of streaming services, internet stations and stuff like that, that will spike in some independent music, but mainly they play the current stuff. There was no home for indie artists to really expose their music. And I think that that was the platform, because you got Michael and Eric, who are big fans of indie soul music. And these are two white Jewish guys. Not that white Jewish guys can't like soul music, but it's not in the mainstream like that. And these guys are diehard indie soul fans. So they wanted to build a platform where these artists get the opportunity to shine. And once I sat down and heard what their agenda was and what they were trying to accomplish, it really excited me, because before moving to New York, I was constantly out on the road promoting records for indie artists, trying to get radio stations to play the music, and I still do that as well. But now I know for sure that there's a radio station that's 100% committed to just great indie music. And let me say this, there's a lot of indie music out there. Not all of it is great. So this radio station does not play anything. It only plays the cream of the crop. So everything that you hear on Soul Cafe Radio, we believe is the best possible choices that's out there. So if you haven't listened to it, I ask you to give it a shot. SoulCafeRadio.com. You can listen on the TuneIn app. We got many other ways for you to listen. Stop by SoulCafeRadio.com first, and then you can find out other things that you can put on your computers, on your phones, on your tablets. But first, stop by and just give it 5 minutes, man. Better yet, if you can listen for an hour, a solid hour, and hear the mix of music that's happening on this radio station at any given time of the day, I think you will come back, and I think you'll tell your friends about it. How do I like New York City? Well, I've been in New York many, many times in my lifetime, and it's normally for a weekend, or it's normally for about 4 or 5 days. I've never been in New York this long. So I always thought that New York had great energy, which it does. It's a very fast-moving place. It's super expensive though, and I guess because I never lived there in my life, I didn't know how expensive. But New York, I see why people now live across the water over in New Jersey and Teaneck and all these other places, because to live in the city is super, super expensive. But I love the energy. I love the mindset of the people. People here in New York believe that they can accomplish anything. And I like being around that kind of energy, because that's how I feel about myself. If I put my mind to something, I feel like I can knock it out the park. And that's how I feel about New York. I really like it. It's just a little expensive, a little pricey, but outside of that, I love the energy of this city. What is my goal with Indie Soul Afternoons? My goal is pretty simple. I want to expose as much music as I possibly can from 2 to 5. I really work hard with Katie and many other managers and publicists and people like that to get artists on the show. I believe that exposure is important. I believe when an artist gets the opportunity to tell their story and how they got started and the pitfalls and everything and the success that has happened in their career, I think that it inspires others and let them know that they're not out here by themselves, and some of the things that they're going through is probably just a normal transition. But more importantly, I want to educate, and that's educating the listener, the person who's listening to the radio station, giving them an opportunity to hear music from people that they never even heard of in their life and become fans of that. And then for the indie artists, I want to give you tips, because in my heart, I'm sold out to indie music. I want to see these indie artists win. And we've had some very tough conversations with artists, because I think a lot of indie artists don't really understand the music business. They understand writing, producing, recording, and stuff like that, but it is music business. So once you come out of the recording studio, there's some business that has to happen. And I've had some very intense conversations about that over the years, but I want to continue to be a resource for people to run to where they can listen to the radio I think it's Tuesdays, I know it's Tuesdays that we do the Indie Tip of the Week, where we just give away information on how to grow your brand. That's something I brought to the table that's very important to me. I think education is king. I think once you know how, you can grow your brand. And so that's what Indie Soul Afternoons is all about. Music, information, interviews, introduction to great artists. That's what I try and accomplish every day in the 3 hours that I'm on the air. In the next 12 months, I've been able to sit in some of the bureau meetings and talk to Eric and Michael and the other people here and find out, where they're trying to go and things that they're trying to put together. Right now, Eric is really working religiously on trying to put together an Indie Soul Grammy Award show. That's like, this is all this guy thinks about, man. It's like every day he talks about it. And I believe in my heart it's gonna happen, because I believe if a person puts that kind of energy towards something, I think it's going to happen. You're gonna see other benchmarks that we put in place where we really have things to really highlight artists that's doing it the right way. We already have the Indie Soul Grammy that every 2 weeks we're giving an artist an opportunity to win a Grammy. And we're gonna have to change the name because the Grammy is, that name is trademarked. And so we're trying to come up with a new name for it, but it's gonna be the same thing where we award you every couple of weeks for what you're doing. And we got a bunch of things planned, a lot of things on the table. One of the greatest things that I like about Eric and Michael and working for TaylorMade Media Group is that these guys allow you to dream as big as you possibly can. When we go to those bureau meetings every week, they say, throw it up against the wall, man. I don't care how big, how crazy, how wild it sounds. Throw it up against the wall. It may be something that we can make happen. I've never worked for a company quite like this before. These guys are ahead of the game. They're really thinking outside of the box. And I really appreciate being on the team. So again, and let me also put this in here because you asked what's happening in the next 12 months of the station. Part of my deal is that I'm going to be doing the show in 2 places. So let's not forget that. I'm right now doing the show in New York City. We're in Times Square. But I'm going to be, they're building as we speak, a server in my office in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I'll get the opportunity to get the flavor from both places because I'll come to New York when I have to, but I'll do the show from North Carolina. And, that's going to be very interesting. I've never done this before. So I'm totally excited about the future of Soul Cafe Radio. It's not going away anytime soon. These guys are 100% committed. And by the way, they got a 2-year deal with me. So I don't think they're going to be going away in 2 years. But, I'm really, all jokes aside, I'm really excited about the future. I think that just looking at the numbers, the growth of people that are joining on and logging on every day to check out Soul Cafe Radio, we're growing by leaps and bounds. To be able to sit in the afternoon and watch where, we come from middays and there's only about 10,000 people listening. By the time that I get off at 5 o'clock, there's 30,000 people from around the world listening to Soul Cafe Radio. And we're just beginning. So we're less than 6 months old. So think about it like this. Where are we going to be in a year? Where are we going to be in a year and a half? Where are we going to be in 2 years? The music keeps getting better. You got a company here that continuously thinks about how they can push the envelope forward. So I'm really excited. Make a long story short, I'm really excited about the future, the next 12 months of what Soul Cafe Radio brings to the table.